one as the tiebreaks between Pragg and Fabi gets into the 10+10. It's handshakes, it's go time, and no London this time. Pragg switches it up with 1e4.
We're off. We are off. So which of these two players is going to face Magnus Carlsen in the final? We now have a winner in the women's section. And we're seeing this opening quite a lot, aren't we, Tanya? The Italian variation. This seems to be the theme between these two players, and also a theme at top level as well, with bishop c4. The advantage is bishop c4, and I figure the reason that a lot of people are playing this move is that it avoids the Berlin. The Berlin variation after bishop b5, knight f6 is becoming very difficult to break down. So let's get back and see how they're playing this one. The bishop comes out, and now d3, this sort of slower maneuvering game. Bishop e7. Okay, the bishop just develops. Both sides castling, and a new approach now that we haven't seen. Instead of going for c3, I don't think we've seen this yet, the knight comes out. d6, a4, making sure the bishop can run away, gaining space in that area of the board. Pinning the knight. You've got to break that pin because of ideas of knight d4, pressure on f3, so you've got to play h3. And this gives chances of playing this move at some point, but bishop e3 on the board, and black plays knight d4 anyway. This is where we are at. So interesting.
And the speed with which Fabi has played, I mean, is there anywhere, any place in the opening that you can surprise Fabi? Pragg tries the early d3, plays a4 quickly, but Fabi's the one who's blitzing out the moves, and after knight d4, you had to trade on d4 because you can't allow black to ruin the pawn structure on the king side, and Pragg immediately jumps forward with the knight. And this is the idea of developing it to c3. You want to get it to d5, and after a trade, the bishop takes, black's probably going to push c6, push that bishop back, but long term, black has doubled up the d-pawns.
Yeah, I mean, answering your question, is there any way you can surprise Fabi? No, I don't. I've never seen it. I mean, the guy is like an opening monster. You know, he's a monster all round, but he's so good in the opening. It's unreal, and they're still banging out their moves here, like they know something about it. So after bishop b3. Bishop takes f3 played. I suppose this. Let's go back then. After bishop b3, now this move is played, and this must be home preparation, because I suppose there is maybe a g4 threat. So it's the computer's top choice, this one. And now g6 on the board, and I'm thinking this is the first new move. So up to this point of queen takes f3, everything has occurred in the game with David Navarra, the Czech star, against Mazu Sti, an international master. But g6 is the first new move, in the game.
And we had a feature chat saying too many exchanges. I'm worried. I think we do end up in this middle game with all the minor pieces except one being traded off, all the set of minor pieces being traded off, except the opposite color bishop. And to many of us, that might seem like there's not much left to play. But Simon, this position is not as toothless as it might appear at first, especially after that move g6, which you're pointing out is the first new move. It kind of gave whites a little bit of a hook. Whenever there are positions with these opposite color bishop, different color complexes, attacking possibilities become key. It is all about trying to create play and pressure against the black king, because you've got this one piece which can't be challenged, which is your bishop. And that last move by Pragg, queen to g4, does hint at potential pawn advances on the king side. f4, f5 ideas are there. At some moment, g3, h4, h5 ideas are there. And yes, everything is in balance and black should be fine, but because of the asymmetrical pawn structure, black having moved away the e pawn to the d line, the double pawns, it gives a free flow to white. And I think if anyone can be better in this position, it's white.
Agreed. I do agree. I mean, I think that's very well explained. And if I was just looking at this position from a fresh, without the evaluation bar, I think does sort of bias us quite a lot. I'd be really liking white's position because of the plan you mentioned: f4, f5, attack. That looks very attractive, and Pragg has now played this move, and you explained it extremely well with the bishop complex. This bishop can never be challenged, and that means it's going to be on this diagonal forever, and that is one strong diagonal. On the other hand, Black's bishop not on a very good diagonal, and it won't get on a good diagonal because there's a pawn always blocking it. So even though this is preparation, Fabiano has gone into this. Maybe he was surprised, Tanya. Can we say that? Maybe Fabiano was surprised somewhere, because he played these last two moves immediately, right, Tanya? Well, pretty much immediately. It must be preparation, but it looks a bit strange to me to go into this as Black because of White's easy plan, yeah? Checkmate. I mean, you can even, I like checkmate. It's a nice plan, right?
Sounds like a great plan.
Just the one thing you don't do, oh my words, I can't believe I was going to suggest this. Let's say A5. I was thinking, yeah, just double the rooks up first, get more firepower over. This would lose the queen, I've just noticed. Oh my words, I'm so good. Oh, it doesn't lose the queen. I thought you could go here, queen G3, and then here. But queen H2. You still don't want to do that, I feel. Maybe you do, I don't know.
It's not the ideal square for the queen. I think queen G4, if you can keep it on G4 or an F3, ideal diagonals. Queen on H2, well, at least the good news is that you still have a square. Fabi, on the other hand, chooses a more standard approach. He wants to connect the rooks. He puts the queen on C7. And I think after White goes F5, you just don't want to react on the king side. You want to keep the pawns as they are. Of course, that also means that you have to find a move, because there could be a potential threat of F6. So I'm just wondering if after F5, what Fabi has in mind is actually to get his own bishop on F6, so that there is no F6 opening up that file, no sacrifices on that square. F5, bishop F6, and just try to maintain the balance in the position by playing on the dark squares.
Yeah, really nice plan. I wouldn't be in a rush to play F5 as White unless there was a real definite reason, and I was starting that attack. And your point of meeting this move with bishop F6 seems like a really good plan, because if that bishop gets to E5, suddenly it's a star piece. That bishop there is really nice. So I really like the idea of bishop F6 and then just putting it here. I mean, of course, you've got to be a bit careful of White's attack with F6 there, but I think you should be able to cover that idea. And why play F5 unless there's a really good reason to do so? So I like this move. Just get the rook around. I kind of feel the rooks belong on the F file to prepare this move, but this is a nice idea. You could also maybe, Tanya, think about, I mean, if I could get my pawn to H5, I'd really, really like that, right? So you could think about introducing Harry, or maybe just do it slowly. Go Gary, go Harry, and try to get the pawn there. The reason I like getting the pawn there is it stops this H5 idea, and I just create more pressure against the Black king. The evaluation bar thinks Black is absolutely fine, but I think this position, as you said, is a bit deeper than that. It just feels more pleasant for Pragg to play, and I would have felt at this level he'd be very happy with how this has gone, because he has the chances. He has these pushes. Maybe even E5, Tanya, is something he can play at the right moment as well.
I like that last move, rook A to E1. You just get all the toys to the pot. You get all the toys to the nursery, so that when you do open up the position with either one of these breaks, everything is ready. So capture the files, just keep the threats in the air, keep the flexibility of your pawn structure, force your opponent to think a little more, to burn those minutes on the clock. And Fabi does the same. He also brings the rook to the central E line, making everything sort of connected and harmonious. It's going to come down to when Pragg decides to go ahead with these pawn breaks, or does he fall back with the queen, advance the G pawn further? Does he push the H pawn, creating more threats of H5, like you pointed out? Everything said and done, if you take the heavy pieces, the major pieces off the board, this is a draw. It ends in a draw. But as long as the queens and the rooks remain on the board, there's still poison in the position. There's still a subtle pull that White does continue to have, and Black needs to watch out for it. Precision might not be required at the moment, but Black needs to be a little careful. And I think from Pragg's perspective, it's quite a nice position to play, Simon. Your play is easier. You're the one with all the plans. You can decide when to go F5, E5, and you're kind of not having to deal with too many dangers on your own king.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agree. There's no danger for white. That's the thing, right? I mean, there's no pawn breaks that white has to watch out for. I was thinking maybe h5 is a move, but it's not something that's ever going to scare you too much. Maybe black should play this move, especially, let's say I play h4. I think black has to play h5 now. I really don't want to allow this pawn to get here. And that's kind of putting me a little bit off playing this move. But there's no breaks that are going to threaten white's position, but there are breaks that's going to threaten the black position. And you pointed out these two ideas. And the queen coming back, you could even try to introduce the g pawn up the board as well. I mean, I don't think that's a ridiculous idea because your king's very safe. And that would cramp black more. Maybe put the pawn on g5, put the pawn on h4. So there's lots of little ideas that white has, but black doesn't have those same ideas. So it's an equal position, but it's more equal for white.
I like how you say that. It's more equal for white than for black. It's a great evaluation.
I think that's from Animal Farm, the book. I think we had to do that at school, and they said everyone is equal, but some people are just more equal than others. And that's that.
Not all equal positions are equally equal.
I love that. Not all equally equal positions are equally equal in this equal world of equality. Oh, blimey! Yes, so it's a Monday. It's a Monday, Tanya. Let's leave it there.
Let's bring in the mushroom coffee.
Let me have some more of that, please.
Queen f3, but this is an idea that we were discussing, right? Make the g pawn join the party as well. g4 coming up. And also let's point out that in certain positions, white can start targeting the d4 pawn. Queen f2 is also always in the air, because if you can provoke black to push that c6 pawn to defend d4, for now black has queen b6. But let's say if black was forced to play c5, to defend that d4 pawn, that creates a lot of holes in black's position. That bishop will land on d5. So c5 is never a move that you actually want to make. The only break that I see for black, or a potential way to try and create some ideas, could be something like a6 b5. But then I'm questioning what next. What do you even achieve if you get a6 b5 if you can never really go c5?
Yeah, even if you play those two moves, I mean, it's not clear what the next idea would be there, and this is why it's a difficult position, right, for black, because he has to wait. Fabi has to wait, and I kind of like your queen f2 move. You just nibble, right? I mean, because black is probably forced to put the bishop on f6 then, and then maybe you can go for g4, g5. Is black's idea? I'll just show it on the board. Let's say you go queen f2. You can't play c5, as Tanya very nicely demonstrated. This is a horrible positional move to play, because at some point you're just giving away some fantastic squares. There's nothing immediate. This is a positional blunder. In the long term, the bishop is just going to rule. So you have to play bishop f6. And I don't know what he's played. And now with g4, I'm thinking you have to go g5 or something, but maybe not. But this is looking, the more I look at this, the more I'm thinking, yeah, I just would not want to be black here. Let's see. Let's keep going.
Another approach by Pragg here, he goes rook e2. So notice how he's put all his pieces on the same color as his bishop. It's sort of playing on the color complex that you're strongest on, which is light squares right now. It also gives the flexibility for the rooks to either double up on the F line, forming an Alekhine battery, or for the rooks to double up on the E line. So kind of keeping all options open, flexibility here, and Fabi rerouting that bishop to D8. It's a move that not only opens up the rook on E8, but you're always eyeing this B6 square. So now queen F2 can in fact be met by bishop B6, or even a sneaky king move where queen into D4 becomes impossible because of the pin along the diagonal. So bishop D8, again, keeping it flexible. At some point, you want to put it on f6 or maybe to b6.
Great move from Fabi. I mean, he's holding this really well. I suppose, I mean, again, I'm a very impatient player. I've probably mentioned this many times. This is why I struggle in some positions like this, especially if in Fabi's structure. I mean, I'm wondering about pawn breaks. I always wonder about them. And is f5 ever a move that black should play, do we think, Tanya? I kind of want to play it because I want to stop white from ever doing it, but it's a very committal move. You open up this diagonal more, you maybe open up your king. It looks a bit risky, doesn't it, f5? But
I'll be honest,
maybe.
Simon. If
Yeah.
this was a blitz game, if I was playing a blitz game in this position, I think I would just play f5. You just
Yeah.
take this decision like really
Yes.
fast and make it on the board and ask questions. But the
Yeah.
problem in this position is one, that you've got the best players in the world playing, but two,
Yeah.
more importantly, you kind of create a lot of long-term weaknesses. You give up a lot of dark squares in the position. When your own bishop can't control the dark squares, you need your pawns to control those squares. So after f5, it gives Fabi's bishop a free hand to land on e5. Bishop f6, bishop e5. Once the bishop gets to that square, you can forget about creating any chances against Black's king. So I think f5 has to be timed really well with concrete ideas. I don't expect Pragg to rush with f5.
I was thinking black playing f5 even, Tanya.
Oh,
Yeah, so maybe. I mean, you're right. I agree. F5, I shouldn't be rushed, but I think it's a game in the blitz game. I would definitely play as white, just
I'm
to try to start
sorry
an
about
attack.
that. I was thinking we've
No.
been like focusing on all the pawn breaks with
Oh
white
no,
with
definitely,
f5, and I was
definitely.
so
Yeah,
taken in with
yeah.
the idea of a pawn break that's all that I was thinking about.
No,
Black
no.
playing f5, that's not a move that I would make in blitz, by the way. Just
No,
putting it
okay,
out there.
okay. It's a move I'd make in blitz and probably lose horribly, but it's. I was just wondering. I'm just wondering if this is a move that, because the only reason I'm suggesting this, that if I was in Black's shoes here, okay, he's played another break. That's quite interesting. I'd be like, I don't want to sit here and defend forever. D5 played though. Wow, what is that move? So he's trying to break in the center in a different way here, and the point I
It's
believe is if you take here, maybe this rook is a little bit misplaced, Tanya, on e2.
Yeah, but I mean, you can still take on d5, and I think you will end up with an extra pawn in that position. Because even after taking on d5, rook e2, queen e2.
There's no pawn takes c6 here, is there? No,
Ooh,
the queen just comes and defends
yeah,
the rook.
defends
So,
the rook on e2.
yeah, so queen takes e2.
And now I don't know if you want to capture on d5 or do you just want to play a move like c5. Is that the idea?
Well, I think if you capture, queen e5 is quite a big threat, right? I mean, for example, if black captures here, queen e5 check will, it will pick up a pawn. It might still be a draw, but it's a pawn, no? I mean,
I would want to play c5 in that position and make sure that maybe the d5 pawn is actually black's friend here.
okay.
And yeah, okay, so the bar is stable. You keep your d4 pawn defended. And now that bishop on b3 is quite blunted by his own pawn. It's a really committal decision by Fabi to go d5, but maybe it just solves problems in an energetic manner.
That is why these players are so good, Tanya. I mean, like the move d5 just wasn't on my radar. Black's been sort of defending up to this point. He's put his pieces on fantastic squares. I love what he's done. Even this bishop move. This was a brilliant setup. And then when he gets the opportunity, he plays d5. And, this is something to be admired. Playing in this way it's just impressive to me, taking the opportunity to break in a tough position. And it was a difficult position for Black. And then you have to calculate this move. You have to realize what's happening after this exchange. Maybe another idea, Tanya, is to try to get a rook to e3. So you could play rook takes e2 and just go rook e8, right? And just slam dunk it into e3, which is a lovely square for the rook in the long run.
But maybe this gives white the opportunity to actually pick up the c6 pawn and throw in that intermezzo. And black is still fine. You get your rook on e3, you get your slam dunk in, but at least my bishop on b3 is active.
Yeah. I suppose another thing I could do is even think about just trying to control the e1 square. So let's say queen here. This is not a ridiculous looking move where I just stop you swapping rooks off. I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe f5 now comes. So
but d5 is very impressive. I agree with you. Simon, coming back to our live position, after once d5 is played, he does take the decision to take on d5, doesn't advance with e5, but he's burnt a lot of time on the clock. He's touching the 3 minutes mark for Pragg. Trades on e2, and now your move rook e8. We might see that, or will we see the move c5?
I think he's banged out rook e8 as far as I can see. That rook's gone to the light square. Trying to go for active play. I mean, this again, it's a really impressive game to me. I know a lot of people watching this might think, oh, this is quite boring, but actually the way that it's been played from Caruana's side is just impressive because he's given up this pawn, but he's played it so patiently. But when he gets the opportunity to get some activity, he's taken it.
And
It's exactly
yeah,
what we said. I can't believe it.
I think
So,
we can pat ourselves on the back because
yeah,
the position that we were discussing is actually on the board. And now you move bishop a5 is a possibility. But I just
maybe
feel
it's
that as long
C7.
as the bishop on b3 is open,
Yeah,
the diagonal is open, you've got these ideas of f5 on the board. White still has a little bit of pressure. And
yeah,
not to mention, White's got an extra pawn.
it is a pawn. Yeah. Um, there's either bishop a5 if you're worried about rook e1. I don't know if I'm worried about it. I mean, if black wants to draw, it's
Black
rook.
does
It's
want to draw. Do you think Black is playing for a win in this position?
I don't think they're thinking about it. I think they're just like thinking, okay, whatever happens, happens, right? I mean, I would imagine rook e3 is kind of like a draw offer in this kind of position because
Hmm.
if I get my queen behind this, I don't know this. I mean, if I was white, I want to get rid of that one, and then as black, I can back this one up, right? And after this one, probably queen takes is a draw, but pawn takes is actually, I don't know, maybe a draw. I don't know. I'm getting confused now. Again, I think actually black is absolutely fine because one of the problems white has is this pawn on h3 in some positions, like and the pawn on f4. So if you get this kind of structure, bishop c7, and those dart squares are starting to look really bad. And I mentioned this pawn here. You probably have to play g3, and there's something about these pawns which is very loose. If the pawn was on h2, they'd be nicely defended, but some move like g5. And if I take there, g3 becomes weak. I know this is quite a long way ahead.
Yeah, and Fabi's provoking that.
Yeah.
Instead of going for rook e3,
Mhm.
which definitely is on his radar and we might see it happen soon, but queen d6 has been played. So kind of eyeing this pawn on f4, saying that after rook e3, you won't be able to play rook e1 because the f4 pawn needs guarding, as well as if you go f5, there are ideas of bishop c7, the bishop and the queen battering up and eyeing the king on h1, which we thought was absolutely safe. But suddenly things can change if the diagonal opens up. So Fabi's actually provoked the move g3, which had to be played if white wants to offer the rook trade on e1.
Yeah. It looks likely it'll be a draw, Tanya, because I think the rooks will come off. I think I prefer to be black, though, here, just because of the king safety. I think these pawns over here, they are loose, but now these pawns are pretty solid. And the black king's a little bit safer. But, it's an extra pawn, so draw likely, of course.
Rook e1 played and Fabi into a bit of a think. We're expecting him to line up with the queen and the rook on the e line, just provoking that trade on e3. Simon, I agree with you. I think this game will end in a draw because even if you get that passer on e3, White's king is close enough to take control of that e2 square. The queen will block it on e2, and it just looks like everything should be in balance there.
Yeah. And bishop b6 is another way you can play this. It probably doesn't make too much difference here. It's going to be a similar kind of thing. There will most likely be an exchange on e3, and black will most likely take with the pawn, rather than take with the queen. Queen takes, a bit risky, only white can be better there. So, and let's just remind everyone, this is now the time limit's getting quicker and quicker. So this is 10 minutes now for each players. I think plus 10 seconds move. Better confirm that. They play 2 games. So after this one, Pragg will be black, Fabi will be white. And if one player wins that match, they go to the final. Otherwise, the time keeps getting cut off, right? So yeah.
They go into the final and they confirm their spot into the candidates, which is a lot on the line for these players. There's no pressure, there's no tension of thinking what is going to be Magnus's ultimate decision, how will it all play out. You win this match, you're into the candidates, you're fighting for the World Cup title. So a lot on the line, and the loser of this match will actually go on to play Abasov for the fight for that 3rd spot in the World Cup. Simon, your move on the board. So bishop b6, still defending that e3 rook. And I'm starting to agree with you that even though white has this extra pawn, black's piece activity now, and no chances for white to create play against black's king, it looks like black has more than enough compensation.
Yeah. I heard a rumor, Tanya, that if they keep drawing and it goes all the way to the 3 minute section and they keep drawing there, it turns into a chess boxing fight. And
Who do you think is a favorite there?
that's what I was going to wanted to get to. Yeah.
Before you put me on a spot.
You were so quick there. That was you could see.
I know you well, Simon. I know you well. I knew exactly where this is headed.
Yeah, and you didn't want to answer it. You wanted to put it right back on me. That was clever. That was a clever one. And who is favourite? Well, you know, Fabiano is the older man. I can see him slipping and weaving quite well. But Pragg, I don't know. He's got good posture. His hands are so quick. Let's see him move. Look at that. He's getting ready. You can see he's got the upper guard there. Whoosh! I can see that being a good little right hook there. I think it'd be a very close chess boxing fight. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, as close as the chess fight.
Yeah, it'd probably just be a draw, wouldn't it? Again, it's just be everything's a draw.
I think these two are too nice to get into a chess boxing match.
They are, yeah, of course. You don't have to be nasty to chess box, so or box. Just want to clarify that. So, as someone who does boxing.
It's such a brutal format, and just the thought that you have to hurt someone physically. I feel like neither. I can't imagine Fabi or Pragg wanting to have a go at each other. At that,
I don't know. I reckon they got a nasty side to them. Like if you want to be a chess player, it kind of is. It's a brutal sport, right? You have to have some kind.
What about you, Sai? Because I know I've seen your posts, and I know that you do a little bit of boxing. Is there someone that you'd like to take on in chess boxing?
Many.
Or just boxing?
Just boxing. Just forget about the gloves as well. Many in the world, but let's not go there.
I'm not going to push it by asking. Give us names, Sai. Give us names, Sai.
That's for another time.
For another stream. Fair enough. Let's get back to the chess. Although I have to say that I think this is the kind of position that the players can play forever. They've got Pragg now under a minute. Fabi about 2 minutes on the clock. But Fabi down a pawn, complete control on the dark squares. And Pragg really doesn't want to trade on e3 right now, because that last move of Fabi, it's again got ideas. It's eyeing that b2 pawn, rook e3, d takes e3, would have attacked the queen as well as won that b2 pawn. So Pragg, bishop c4, I think he wants to start pushing the pawns on the queen side. Will he play the safer pragmatic b3, or will he go all out with b4 and trying to gain more space, get that bishop from b6 dislodged from that square?
Good question. Yeah, I suppose Black can just play something like a5 here, just to take the possibility of b4 away. But maybe Black wants to keep this square for the bishop at some stage. I mean, it's weird because White actually has the extra pawn, but I'd still much rather be Black here, because Black has these little pawn breaks. Okay, he does go a5, just stopping White's idea. For example, if you ever imagine the Black pawn getting to h4, I think the position becomes a little bit dangerous, right, for White there. And the same goes if there's a well-timed g5. So it should be a draw, but it's more drawish for Black, I feel, this position. Maybe. Yeah. Little bit.
We were just a couple of moves ago, we were talking about how it's more equal for White, and now we've kind of just changed that up to more draw for Black than it is for White.
It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? I think equal draw. It's it's a good question.
It might be time now, Simon. Maybe it's time for White to actually start thinking about trading on e3, rook e3, d takes e3, because you might have the moment to actually go c3. Block that. It's on the board, by the way. c3, d4 coming in, and I'm really blunting your bishop, and I might start targeting your e3 pawn. Suddenly, remember, king is a piece in even this position. Queen e2, king f3. I can imagine a scenario where the e pawn is under trouble.
100%. Well, this might be equalish,
but
it's pressing down on me, and just helping you out finish those lyrics there. And is that actually the lyrics? I'm not even sure it is, but you're right. I mean, this Pragg, and you can see the speed which he played there. Tanya, he played this so quickly, and if he can round up the e pawn, it's going to be a 2-pawn advantage. And look, the queen comes in.
You know what he wants to do? He wants to go king f1, king e2 next, and then go d4.
Oh, and then just gobble that pawn. Ooh, careful. Fabiano. What did Fabiano do wrong there? I think he just allowed the c3 move at the wrong time, right? He
Yeah,
played
but then
bishop
queen
c5.
f1 was so sneaky. That move with the queen
Yeah.
retreat from f2 to f1, just making sure that the queen doesn't come under threat once you trade on e3. It's so easy to just kind of rush through the motions in that position and actually not understand the idea until it appears on the board, and then it's too late.
Yeah, no, you're right. And now black doesn't really have any counterplay. I love your idea of maybe getting the king to this square, and he's going to go for it. Again, great minds think alike. Get the king on e2, go d4, and win a second pawn. Could be a draw still because the opposite color bishops, but one thing is clear. Fabiano is going to have to fight extremely hard now to get the draw. Because this pawn, I can't see how you're going to save this pawn.
Yeah.
d4
I don't even think
at the right moment. Yeah.
I don't believe that it's any more equal for white. I think white has some serious chances here.
I agree.
Simon, if you can win that second pawn, the e3 pawn, that's bad news for black. I mean, the defensive task just gets harder. And I don't see a way for black to actually hold on to it.
No.
He's trying to create some play. Queen b7. Look at the speed with which Pragg plays. He goes b3, defends it. No way for black's queen to get counterplay. And d4 is coming next.
This is looking really good for Pragg, and you may also switch things up, Tanya, and start even playing your queen on the offensive as well. You know, you d4 I like, that's a great move, but maybe the queen is well placed on e4 in some positions, and this pawn, it looks to me like it's going to drop. Yeah, this is okay. Is black going to try to get around d4 c5? That is committal. Now you can go for this ending, but maybe more to the point is d5 here. Get a pass pawn.
But I think Fabi realizes that he needs to do these things. He needs to try to create a little mess on the board because Pragg is down to seconds and it's his best chance to create complications. And a cross has been awarded to that last move, but Pragg still maintains the advantage. I think we can ignore that evaluation because d5 is such a human move to play.
Yeah, and now queen takes e3. I think d5 was actually the best move. The computer maybe doesn't realize that some of these endings are actually a draw, the opposite colored bishops, but this gives white much better chances than the ending because the queens get exchanged, the white king can come this way, and I think that's a winning position. So black has to keep the queens on. I mean, this is actually, the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm just thinking Pragg is winning. As simple as that. It's two pawns.
Two pawns. How's he making progress? What's the plan here for white to make progress in this position, Simon? Fabi has taken control of the d pawn. It can't advance anymore. What does white do next?
Well, I think at some point you obviously defend your weak point. So let's put the bishop on c6 and put our king on c4. I think this idea of putting the king on c4, threaten to win a third pawn, and you might even have queen e5 just going for a very good ending. I mean, king d3 looks
coming. It's happened. King d3, king on the hill there. King d3, king c4 ideas. Will this king win a second pawn in this game? And I think what Fabi wants is to go queen f5. Some desperate attempts. It's trying to create counterplay. I really don't see the play in the position though.
No, this is a third pawn. You know, you take there queen f5, king c4, and the great thing that white has is this square for the queen. So here, he's playing it another way around. So this is also very clever because queen f5 is not check anymore. So black has to go on defensive, and you could even go like queen e8 and tie black to defense now. But I don't know. Should he have taken that one? Look at the bar though. The bar thinks this is game over. I mean, it's not as easy these things because if you
continue the march, you go king b5 as well and start attacking the a5 pawn. Things could get really crazy. Instead, he plays queen e4 again, just playing on those light squares, and things are getting tricky for Fabi. He's down to 15 seconds. And Fabi trying to create those chances. He's trying to trade off on the king side, making some weaknesses. If you take on f4, there's a potential check on f1 that can be dangerous.
Yeah, this is great try, and this has happened. Let's just keep an eye on the game now because the time as well is getting very sharp. They are banging out the moves, and I think Fabiano realizes that his position is bad, very bad here. So he's just trying to get his queen into the position, and he does. At the end of the day, Pragg is 2 pawns up here. He's simply 2 pawns up. What is the time situation? I'm trying to have a look, and
15 seconds
15
for Pragg.
seconds.
And he just made the move king b5. The king has marched all the way from the king side. It was on g2, Simon. It went, if you can show it with the arrows, the kind of king dance that we've seen in this game. From g1 to f1 to e2 to d3 to c4. Now all the way up on b5, collecting pawns along the way. What a route this king has. And it's been sort of the superstar in White's game right now.
It has. And if when he takes that a pawn, this could be a game winner, the pawn. And is he going to take it now? I think he's just going to take it. He's only got 12 seconds left. So this is why Fabiano is moving quickly. He's playing in a bit of a hustler's kind of way. You know, he's just trying to make it as complicated as he can. And yes, black can win another pawn, but there's no stopping this a pawn. You can't do anything, I think, about Harry coming up the board. Simple as that. The bishop defending the queening square. This pawn's kind of irrelevant, because for black to queen, it takes just too many moves to get those pawns up the board. So it's Harry, the a pawn, I feel, who's going to win this first game.
You can't even imagine to trade the queens in this position. If you have to take the g3 pawn, you have to do it with the bishop, and then just hope and pray that the bishop is in time to come back to b8 to take control of that a7 square, stop that a pawn from getting there, and start pushing your own h pawn. But let's not forget, there's Derek, the d pawn as well. That's going to be equally dangerous.
That's right. I mean, he maybe could have pushed the d pawn then, but then after check, it becomes quite complex. So, but how is Fabi going to stop the a pawn? He's got to get his queen back around.
E7?
Only way. Yeah, his queen's got to come back passive now. But when the queen comes back, it's going to be passive forever. Queen a7, your move. Queen e7 is played, and now the white queen needs to improve its position. Maybe head for d7. Maybe get into the d7 square. Because actually exchanging queens now will be an easy win. This is clever, isn't it, Tanya? We're going to try to get in there with a check. You want to block the queen's route to a7. So queen g4 looks so strong. I think Pragg's going to take this first game, Tanya. He must be taking this now.
And there's been 4 draws between these two players. Close matches, close fights. And right now, Pragg is on the brink of taking the lead in the match for the first time, gives a check, king h6. The a-pawn still can't move forward. So is he going to try and offer queen trades from d7? You have to watch out for checks on e2. It just feels like White's king should be still safe after a move like c4. He's going in for it. He goes for queen to c8. It allows a check on e2, but maybe it's just a check. And black doesn't really have a follow-up if White just continues even getting his king further into the game with king b6.
Yeah, I like it. The queen comes in straight away. And as you say, there is only one check, and the white king might just march forwards. Look at the time. They're both so short. So the bishop moves, and now maybe queen d7, because this a-pawn, the only thing stopping it is the black queen. So you just block the black queen's route. There might be other ways to win. You might even better block it with a bishop, but keep it simple. Offer the exchange of queens. He's played it. Get the queens off the board, and the check is forced. There was nothing else. Fabiano has to keep the queens on the board. Yeah,
and he wants to go bishop e3 check, but White's king is safe on b7 as well. There's no need for White to panic.
I love this b4 move. Just keep any lines closed. Keep the b file closed rather than grabbing a pawn, and the white king will sit very happily there. Just avoid queen b8 checkmate, and you'll be all right. Because a7, a8, this is getting near the end. And where do you put the king? You might even be able to put it on b5. They both win. Both squares.
You can just go king b5.
Yeah.
And he's done it. King b5. There's no check on the board. a7 is coming up. Pragg knows it. And Fabi down to 13 seconds on the clock. Pragg is about to take the lead in his semi-final against Fabiano Caruana.
This is brilliant stuff from Pragg. And you can tell from his body language, he just had one chance in this game. And that pawn is coming through. And he took the chance straight away. As soon as he was able to swap the rooks, he just grabbed it. He's playing such brilliant chess.
White can queen, but then it allows a couple of checks, and Pragg is just calculating. He's taken a pause. He's trying to think what happens if he queens. He's gone for it. Black goes c3, and now White has to find the right square for the king. Will he go forward with king b6? Put that king on b7. It looks absolutely safe to me, Simon. Once it gets closer to the queens, king b6, king b7, I think is the way to go here.
I agree, and he's going for that because you want to keep your king on the light squares because your opponent has the dark square bishop. At the end of the day, you're a queen up. This pawn, I mean, okay, it's still a little bit complex because that is coming down the board, but it's white's turn to start checking very soon. Queen F8
look at the tension
on the agenda.
on these two players. Simon, they're sweating right now.
I would be sweating as well
Oh
if I was
my
playing
God.
this game, but it's not over. Let's just remind everyone, if Pragg wins this one, it means that Fabiano has a chance with the white pieces to level the score in the next game, but he's got his king there, and now c2. So how do we win it? Queen f8 check looks like the way to me. Go for mate, 2 queens. You can't stop 2 queens
And that's
attacking.
it. He resigns.
He's done it.
Fabiano Caruana loses his first game in the FIDE World Cup, and it's at the hands of 18-year-old Praggnanandhaa. Fabi in a must-win situation in the final game of 10+10 to force a playoff. Praggnanandhaa needs a draw to advance to the finals, to play against Magnus Carlsen, to fight for the World Cup title.